So, first off, I just want to say I am so surprised and shocked and amazed. Someone sent me some money on Venmo. And I'm like, just allowing myself to receive it. I wasn't expecting it at all. And I was like, how do they even know my Venmo? How do they even know how to give me money? And I guess it's on my link tree, but I wasn't expecting that, and I just wanted to say thank you and express gratitude for that because that was very unexpected and um, help remind me that there are people who care about other people in this world. And yeah, it just felt really good to receive. So thank you. If you're watching this and you sent that to me, I am going to send you a message as well. But just in case you also see it on here, thank you. I wanted to just jump on really quickly and talk about something that I don't think really has a large voice just yet, or, is beginning to grow more in the world neurodivergent community just in general, and that is being brown and being on the spectrum. And I don't really ever focus on the fact that my skin is brown, like ever, but after watching so many different channels about neurodivergence or just following people on social media, I kept noticing, like, in the comments, there would be a lot of people who were talking about being brown and, like, wanting not representation, but to feel like they were also a part of the conversation or feel like their perspectives were shared as well or considered, or the nuance that is present when you are brown and on the spectrum. And so I just wanted to speak a little bit to my experience of that because for the most part, I want to say it's almost like, how a lot of people in the neurodivergent community will say that there's like a double empathy dilemma or problem. I feel like there is like a double you're weird, I'm already like triggered by you based on what you look like problem when you're brown and on the spectrum. And I think some of that comes from masking and code switching, kind of almost being two of the same things but in different fonts. And for most of my experience as I was growing, I didn't actually go to, I think it was more difficult for me because I never was really in a school that had a large amount of diversity until late enough in my development that I already had created some kind of, there's a word I want to use. Mercury is about to go retrograde, so I know words are going to be leaving me soon. Oh, there's a cardinal outside. Stigma around, no, that's not the word. I don't want to get distracted. So I basically knew from the time I was in kindergarten through middle school that the way I looked was weird and made people confused or uncomfortable, or they would get triggered by it or make fun of it. And I don't think it was always associated with the fact that I was brown. For the most part, I never really thought, like, I didn't conceive at all that I was brown or that my skin color meant anything to anyone until I was in like middle school. Before then, a lot of the times it was like I was being made fun of for how I talked, how I sounded, the pitch of my voice, the things I would talk about, just like my personality in general. So I was never thinking like I'm being treated differently because of my skin. I was just like, I'm being treated differently because I must be different. And that's what I took it as. It wasn't until I went to a really racist school in middle school that I realized, oh, these people don't like me because I'm brown? What? Make that make sense? It doesn't. What does me being brown have to do with anything about my personality? But I guess in some ways it did kind of like relieve me a little bit that there was such a like basic topical reason for not liking me compared to like my personality. So in some ways I felt like it was a better layer of protection for myself to have people, sorry, I'm messing with the pen right now, having people who immediately would choose not to engage with me or be around me because of the color of my skin, because those aren't people I probably wanted to be around to begin with. So I was actually really being protected in some ways by being brown versus being neurodivergent. So I didn't really recognize a lot of the layers of my eccentricity continuing on and still being within me, because at this point I was already really masking and learning how to assimilate, especially into the racist culture, which I talked a little bit about in another video I posted about my childhood reflections of being on the spectrum. But I would say that as I continued into high school, into adulthood, into where I'm at now, being brown and being on the spectrum, I don't think to me, it's less about like feeling ostracized or feeling disadvantaged because of my brown skin, as much as I would say being neurodivergent. And I think that's simply because I've been able to showcase myself, mask probably well enough in the world as a woman, because I've researched that women are much better at masking than men are. And being able to show that I'm observant, a hard worker, analytical, like quick learner, able to get the job done quickly. I don't ask lots of questions. I work well alone, like things that most people, employers would be happy about. So I never felt like I was being like, oh, I didn't get that job because of I'm brown. I didn't get this because of that. And maybe in some realms and spaces and places, probably that did happen. I just never got the call back for that kind of job, because almost every job that I've ever gotten, actually, now that I think about it, this is coming in, every job that I've ever actually had came from me going in person and introducing myself, or someone else recommending me to get a job somewhere. It was never through applying and then being reached out to. And I always used to think, I think it's because my name sounds super like brown and Hispanic, because I'm also Puerto Rican. So I have like a very brown sounding first name and a very Hispanic last name. And I wondered if like subconsciously people were not calling me back and hiring me because of my name. And then I would go in person and then it would be a completely different response and reaction. And like, obviously the mask I knew how to put on worked really well in those environments, because customer service wants that. They want you to be like a robot. And I knew how to do that. I knew how to do that well. So I guess I will say in some ways maybe the brown thing did affect me. But I would say even more than that, being neurodivergent has affected me more, in the sense that being brown and being like, it's one thing to look a certain way, and then to be able to show people through the way that you act that they judged you incorrectly. But it's another thing for people to kind of judge you for the way that you look being brown. And then on top of that, the way that you act being ultimately confusing to them, even more so in the sense that there's a stereotype around brown women. I haven't had this perpetuated as much maybe as my ancestors before me. I would even say ancestors, well, I guess not ancestors, but like my family line before me, like my grandmother and my mother. Because typically the stereotype is that brown women don't need help. Brown women are a little more aggressive. They're a little more blunt. They're a little more independent. They don't need anyone. They're more abrasive. They'll fight you. Like all these, like, I don't even know where any of that comes from, because I am like none of those things. But in some ways it probably protected me. But I will say that having all of those like layers of things to work through when someone projects onto you as a brown person, it's a lot more difficult when then on top of that you also are like not, you don't get to, it's like they have that projection of that's how you're going to be when they meet you, which is already unhealthy. And then when they get to know you, the version that they're knowing, yes, is opposite of what the stereotype of a brown person is. But then also, if they're not open-minded or open-hearted or like curious about people who are different from them, then the way that you act is like still going to be off-putting to them, because not only are you not acting like the stereotype they expected you to, the thing that you're proving is the opposite of the stereotype is still something that they don't understand. And still something that they can't integrate and like get. And I had that happen so many times where I would be super excited in discussing something I was interested in, and it was too niche or too weird, and like I still didn't fit in that like a category. Like I couldn't fit into like the brown stereotype, and I couldn't fit into like the neurotypical stereotype. So I like just didn't know what to do a lot of the times. And I actually mainly worked around not a lot of brown people, or like the subset culture of being a brown person in America, until I worked at one movie theater specifically. And then I got to interact with more people who were brown. And then I still realized in a lot of ways, like, oh, I still didn't even really receive a lot of whatever this is. And I'm assuming a lot of them had stereotypes placed onto them that they felt the need to perpetuate. And so like I was still working and navigating through even like already having the first layer, like thinking like, oh, these people are brown as well, so like they will naturally not judge me or project onto me. And then I was still judged and projected on because my skin tone wasn't the same skin tone as theirs, or I didn't talk the same way they talked, or I wasn't interested in the same music and this and that. And it was just like never ending. It was like no matter what direction I turned, there was no place for me to be without puzzled looks and just really, I don't know a good word for it. It just felt like I was always masking or always trying to just change the way that I interacted in order to show that I was like easy to. I don't understand. I wasn't even trying to prove that I was easy to be around. I was just trying to like be allowed to be myself and not have it be like completely questioned every single time I entered into a room, or judged, or surprised by, or like confused by, in all these ways that are actually really insulting. Like, wow, you're so well spoken. Oh, wow, you're really smart. Okay, yes. Like, what is that? Can't you just say, wow, I really appreciate the way you think. Like to say like, wow, you're so intelligent, oh, you're so smart, or oh, you're so well spoken, versus being like, I really like the way that you explain things. You have a really unique mind. Like, I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way. But anyway, so I would say being brown and being on the spectrum, specifically ADHD, has not necessarily been easy, but I also haven't really hyper focused on the fact that I'm brown, because even in the brown world, I don't really fit in. If that's that, I think that's what I was trying to get to, is like my experience, and I can only speak to my experience, is that it feels almost the same to be a brown person and to try and be a part of brown culture as it feels to be a neurodivergent person and fit into neurotypical culture. Like in both directions I go, I don't fit. So it's like double, like the double empathy thing. It's like the double don't fit in thing. I think there are a lot of brown people who are on the spectrum are probably really struggling with that, especially because of the stereotypes that are perpetuated. Honestly, it's really just stereotypes. And that is something that I just never understood. And like I said, I didn't realize I was brown until middle school, when people kept highlighting to me how I was black and this and then I was like, oh, I guess, yeah. Like, it did not compute to me at all that that was the way in which I was supposed to measure someone, ever. So I don't want this to be super long because I'll just keep going on a tangent. So I think I'm going to kind of close it out here. But essentially, I wanted to kind of just briefly speak on it, and then if it's like something maybe I can dive into more, if we want to talk about it more, we can, or you can just feel a little less alone just by hearing these 12 minutes that I've been speaking on it. I'm sure some of it has resonated for you, but I just feel like it'd be nice to be able to be interested in weird niche things that I like, and it not be contrary to being brown, and not be so eccentric that it just doesn't make sense to someone who maybe hasn't, not, I don't want to say neurotypical, but just to anyone who hasn't taken the time to allow themselves to be open to things that don't fit into like some kind of narrative that they think they need to live by. So yeah, being brown and being on the spectrum has been interesting. I do think sometimes my masking has been the greatest help, and the code switching probably, in terms of like getting me into certain places I maybe would not have been able to without it. And the certain unique gifts that I have from my neurodivergence. But other than that, I would say it's, if you're really struggling and don't have like community or friendship, it can be really hard to be brown and on the spectrum, for sure. But I don't want to leave it on a sad note. I am really grateful that I have a rich history. I have a rich background of different cultures and places and spaces, and I don't feel any shame in who I am and the things that were told to me about what I should be ashamed about, who I was as a child. I don't carry any of those with me. So I'm really grateful that I just kind of let that not be a part of my story. I'm also really grateful that my brain works in the way that it does, and I don't judge it, and I work with it and I observe it. And obviously the world isn't necessarily made for the way that I work yet, but I trust in these coming years and decades, as newer generations are born, and the generation I'm a part of are the ones that eventually will hold the foundation for change that'll not look the same. So yeah, I think that's a positive note. But if you'd like to share your experiences of how you've felt being brown and on the spectrum, please do. If you resonate with my story, please share that. I would love to hear that as well. And as always, until next time, I'm sending you peace, I'm sending you love.